Good morning, Doc. I apologize for the slight delay on this. My computer melted down, and it had a lot to do with I had some archaic software for video, and it was not allowing the actual video or the audio to work. So I was getting good video feed, but not audio. And when I tried to download, it did not like the program I tried to download, so it caused a lot of problems with my computer. Irregardless of that, I will send you my original, but I'm also doing this one. I ordered a new video feed or video camera with some really good software. I love this software, and I think now this should get to you with no problems or issues. However, having said that, I will be talking about the Zachman framework and governance, or governance laid out correctly. I'm going to talk about this in terms of why I like Zachman. I like Zachman because it is generic. A lot of people look at this as a disadvantage. They also believe Zachman is very paper intensive. I disagree with that. I think the intensity of the paper is based on a lack of understanding of governance. If you clearly understand governance, then you clearly understand that communication is the key. Governance is a requirement, or the requirement for governance is that you bring people together and they talk about the process. Zachman, being generic, dispels a lot of the we have to follow this and we have to do that, and we have to, if we don't do it this way, then it's not going to be right, or we're not following the framework model, or I don't understand. What it allows you to do, what Zachman clearly allows you to do, is to get your team together. And what I mean by the team is the BA portion, or the business architecture, and the EA portion, or the enterprise architecture. So we have CEO and we have CIO. All those groups should come together on a baseline. That's good governance. They come together and they make, or they talk and speak about the model or the architecture in a way where they're just essentially dropping information into the various areas of the model. The 36 rows and columns, if you will, they can say we want this here, we want this here, and then they all agree, or they make a baseline ruling on how the process is going to go. And if everybody is in agreement with that, right, then essentially all elements are understood. And then what you do, what governance says, is you always come back to the baseline if there's a question or if there's a change. You cannot make a change without letting everybody know what's going on. If you make those changes without speaking to anyone, or just in your little, as it is now, in my opinion, would be my opinion at this point, but in the world of enterprise architecture, you usually have empires where you have folks who are saying, well, this is mine, and don't tell me, and no, we're not going to change that, and no, that's going to affect our money, and don't tell us this, don't tell us that. All of these things are detrimental to the process. What is required under governance is that you come together and communicate. You must speak the same language. The same language means the CEO and the CIO are talking to each other. CEO makes the requirement and says, this is what I want. It's a business thing. This is what I want for the business, or the business architecture. The CIO, using their expertise with information technology, says, okay, not a problem. Here's what we can give you based on the monies and the other items, the software, whatever it might be. What Zachman allows, the architecture allows, is for you in a generic mode to just start plugging and dropping things in. And as you're dropping those things in, you're not just dropping them in your own little cellar or domain. You have the CEO there saying, I think this should go here, and this is why. That is usually the missing component. People don't speak to each other except until after a process is done, or it's in stone and now it's very hard to change. Then you have revision 7, revision 12, revision 24. In my opinion, revisions should only be for things that increase the value of the EA process and the BA, business architecture as well. Those two should always be together. So, having said all of that, the first rule, number 1, columns have no order. Basically in Zachman, they have no order. The columns are interchangeable but cannot be reduced or created. All right, essentially it's what it is. That's a baseline. All right, that's a baseline understanding. Rule number 2, each column has a simple generic model. Every column can have its own meta model. The same thing, it's very generic. You can shift and move. But here, I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to hit this a lot, is essentially, even though you can shift and move, you must, by definition, ensure that the process is covered by everyone. Everybody has to be involved in it. Rule 3, the basic model of each column must be unique. The basic model of each column, the relationship, objects, and structure of it is unique. Each relationship object is interdependent, but the representation objective is unique, so that it's clear what's going on in each of the model rules. Each row describes a distinct, unique perspective. Each row describes the view of a particular business group and is unique to it. All rows are usually present in most hierarchical organizations. The rows essentially show you what you need to work on. What did you plug in? My concern is under governance that in Zachman you understand what the heck is there because you were there on the initial run for the plugin. All right, rule 5, each cell is unique. The combination of 2, 3, and 4 must produce unique cells where each cell represents a particular case. Example, A2 represents business outputs as they represent what are to be eventually constructed. So those things are unique and they must follow through. Rule 6, the composite of integration of all cell models in one row constitutes a complete model from the perspective of that row. For the same reason as for not adding rows and columns, changing the names may change the fundamental logical structure of the framework. This is the governance portion that I'm talking about. If you make a change, people must know, or it will cause nothing but confusion in the process. And finally, the logic is recursive. The logic is relational between two instances of the same entity. So everybody's on the same page because you've already communicated what the process is. Altogether, what does this mean? And all this stuff that I'm talking about. The rules ensure continuity for the EA framework. This means that while the Zachman framework is generic, it can fit any EA process. I love that. I love it. The key, however, is understanding that this model, if followed, is a brilliant governance process that only requires a baseline understanding by all team members before implementation starts. This is the key and must be understood. So, what am I saying? The Zachman framework equals governance of the as-is, what you have when you start, and the to-be. And those two things marry up to each other essentially by ensuring that everyone understands. There should be nobody going, I didn't know about that. Well, when did that change? That's the issue. Understanding that the business architecture must be in accord with the enterprise architecture from the beginning of the BA CEO and the EA CIO process. So BA plus EA equals governance through communication of all involved. And that is my take on Zachman. I think it's a really good process, and it will afford anybody who uses it, because of its generic nature, the ability to really build an effective BA and EA process, not just the EA process. I think that's a mistake. You have to have both in conjunction with each other for it to make sense. So this is Edward Avant, and one of your students, and you have a good day. I think I've made my case. I am a governance guy, always was, always will be. All right, thank you, and you have a good day.